A crazy demon Karen gets angry at a Taco Bell employee, all because she didn't have enough money for $2 chips. And after screaming for a manager and making a massive scene, this Karen gets so mad that she launches a chair out into the parking lot in a fit of rage. And I'm honestly still blown away by this interaction, and I hope I never have to deal with her ever again. Here's what happened. So just the other day, my dad and I went up to an IKEA to get some furniture for my new room, and we stopped off by Taco Bell for lunch. My dad got me to run in and get some food for us, so I went in and placed my order and was starting to fill up my drinks when the demon Karen entered the restaurant. She went up to the front register and slammed down a cup with a few coins in it, demanding, or at least what I presume she was going on about, some $2 chips. After getting denied about not having enough cash with her, she asked all the customers, including me, if she can have some money. Well, as you can probably imagine, everyone stayed silent and just stared at her. So after complaining a little bit, she then says, "This is Taco Bell, a multi-million-dollar company. They had better comply with my request." And it was at that moment she did the only thing that her species does in distress. She demanded to speak to a manager. But here's the thing. The person she was arguing with the entire time was the manager herself. At this point, the demon Karen lost her mind. She screamed at the manager for her chips, and then for some reason she turned around and gave me the dirtiest look for some reason. I mean, I'm just standing over here filling up my drinks. I was so confused. She then turned back to the manager and said it has been 15 minutes and that she's demanding they give her free food. But obviously the manager said no. Now my food was ready at this point, so I was about to collect it and was gonna go back to where I was. But before I could even do that, she tried to take my food, but thankfully another employee took my food before she could get it. And once that happened, this demon Karen stormed outside in anger. After she was gone, the employees apologized for the inconvenience. I collected my food and then I went outside to my dad. And just as I'm exiting the door, this entitled Karen was on her way back inside. I got in the car and I told my dad about what just happened, and just as we were about to leave, a chair was literally thrown into the parking lot. We sat there staring at this for a few minutes, all before we decided to leave in absolute fear. And hopefully we never have a run-in with this demon Karen ever again. Okay, I will never understand why people get upset at fast food restaurants, especially at a place like Taco Bell. Look, if you like Taco Bell, that's fine, but the only reason I would ever go there is because I literally have no other options in life. Like, there better be no other food available within like a 5-mile radius for me to go into that restaurant. Again, if you like Taco Bell, good for you. But for me, it's just not my cup of tea. So for this demon Karen to storm into Taco Bell and freak out, all over $2 chips, like, that is crazy to me. Like, there is no reason to act like that. And I also just can't imagine not having enough money for $2 chips and then taking it out on the manager all because you don't have your stuff together. And the fact that they threw a chair into the parking lot over this, like, this is what set you off. Like, really? Like, God knows I've had my own stresses in life, but I don't think I'll ever get to the point where I'm like catapulting chairs through a Taco Bell parking lot. So I think the silver lining here is at least you got your food at the end of the day, and that demon Karen was not able to like take it from you before you could run off with it. Because clearly not getting those $2 chips absolutely unhinged her. And I know if I was in that situation, I would be speeding off in fear as well. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for ignoring my husband during our flight when he expressed anxiety over flying? Because right now he's upset with me and he simply won't let it go. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 33-year-old female and I recently married my husband, and we took a 3-hour flight to Mexico for our honeymoon. Now, I fly a lot for my job, so I've racked up a lot of miles. My husband isn't a big fan of flying, though he has gotten better and tends to just hold my hand and close his eyes during takeoff and during landing. And he's mostly okay when he's in the air. When I booked our flights, I requested to use my points if an upgrade to business class became available, but I made it clear I only wanted this upgrade if 2 seats became available, and then I basically forgot about it. Then comes the day for our flight, and I was so excited for this trip. I checked us in online, all was going well, and then when we go to board, the person scanning our boarding passes stops us. She says it seems that my husband was upgraded to business class, but only him, and asked if that's okay. I immediately say no. We are on our honeymoon and we would like to stay together. But then my husband jumps in and says, "No, it's fine, I'll go to business class." I look at him in complete shock, and he tells me that I fly all the time, and I have been in business class before, but he hasn't. So he deserves a chance to experience it for himself. I see we are holding up the line, so I feel like I just need to agree and get on the plane. Now, to say that I'm upset is an understatement. apartment. He is all smiles, taking his seat, and I go back to my seat where they sit me next to an old woman with a baby on her lap, where my husband should be sitting. Within maybe 5 or 10 minutes of sitting there, trying to hold back tears because my husband left me alone on our flight during our honeymoon and uses my points for his upgrade no less, he starts to text me saying he feels anxious over flying, but I just ignore the text messages and stop looking at my phone. Within maybe an hour after we're in the air, he comes to the back of the plane to find me, offers me half of his business class breakfast, and asks me why I was ignoring him, that he was scared and needed me to tell him that it'd be okay since I'm such an experienced flyer. I told him that maybe he should have thought about that before leaving me alone before our honeymoon even really began. He gets angry and tells me that this may be the only time he gets to fly business class, and he was giving me half his breakfast to make up for it, so I could at least be supportive of his genuine fear. Well, I just roll my eyes sarcastically and I say thanks, and he just goes back to his seat. When we landed, I tried to move on and forget about it so that we could just enjoy our honeymoon, but he guilt-tripped me about not comforting him via text messaging before takeoff, and now I'm wondering if I'm being unreasonable and should have just let him enjoy his time in business class and ensure him that it'd be okay. So honestly, am I the jerk? Because seriously, right now, I am not sure what to do. No, I do not think you're the jerk at all. Your husband jumped at the chance to be in business class, even though you made it very clear that it's either both of us or none of us. He willingly used your miles just to get up there, and in my opinion, that's really inconsiderate. Like, I can completely understand why you would be upset, because I think if I was in your shoes, I would be upset as well. Like, he made a very selfish and questionable decision on this particular instance, and it really threw you under the bus. And you know what? I don't blame you for ignoring the text messaging, because the way you felt in this moment was completely justified. And if he seriously wanted you to comfort him during this flight, then he should have stayed in the back with you instead of going up to business class. Because in my opinion, that is incredibly selfish, and I really think that this was an unfair thing for him to do. An angry old jerk is furious with me when I don't let him into my store literally an hour before we open. And despite my best efforts to try and explain to him how this business operates, he simply refused to listen, making my life a living nightmare as he hobbled away, claiming that I just lost a customer. And honestly, I'm so done with entitled jerks like this, and I seriously hope I never see that guy ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that this just happened earlier today. I'm the store manager at a department store, and I pulled up to the store before any of my associates about an hour or so before opening. I park a little ways away from the entrance to allow closer parking for our guests, and I notice an older gentleman standing off to the side of our building, which is about 300 feet away from the entrance. This is nothing unusual per se, as this is a retirement city, and the retirees with nothing better to do just ramble around the town on their golf carts and frequent the little shops around the area. So I finish my coffee, open the door, and begin walking to the entrance to open it. I noticed the guy was starting to walk my way, but didn't think anything of it because people pass by all the time, even this early in the morning. I unlock the door, step inside, and then I shut it. Then I began walking to the back of the store. About halfway to the back, I hear a slam of the doors, as if someone is trying to open them while they're locked. I turn around and it's the same guy. I cautiously walk back to the entrance, scoping him out to make sure he isn't homeless or someone trying to rob me. And by the time I get to the front, he's got his face on the glass with both his hands cupping over his eyes just to help him see inside. But that's only because none of the lights are on yet, except for the emergency lights, as I don't turn them on until closer to opening. After clearing him for threats, I open the door and begin to ask if I can help him with anything, as he immediately begins to brush past me to presumably enter. I obviously stop him and explain that we aren't open yet, and that we will be opening in just a little over an hour. Well, he looks at me in disbelief. He says to me, "What do you mean? I just watch you unlock the door and walk in." And when he said that, I chuckled just a little bit, assuming this was just some kind of awful dad joke, which seemed to only make him more upset. I then explained to him that I'm here to open the store and get it ready for guests to shop in. He then asks me what there even is to get ready, and then tells me if he needs to buy anything, I can just check him out. At this point, I'm still in disbelief, but I try not to let that influence guiding him through this tough time in his life. And I go ahead and tell him how I need to open up the cash registers. I need to count money drawers and make sure any guest accessible areas are free of clutter and racks and all this other stuff, along with office tasks and checking the emails for any merchandise updates. But he responds with an eloquently stated, "Oh, I don't care about all that. Explain to me why everybody else is open right now then." I looked across our parking lot to the hardware store he was pointing at and simply told him that we just have different business hours. Some people get up early to do their home projects, but not as early to shop for clothing and shoes. He tells me they probably would shop that early if we open sooner. Now, I've learned to not argue with idiots, so I just tell him the store hours are set by corporate and that we have no control over when we open. After a few more crazy comments that prove his lack of understanding how businesses work, and me trying to be as polite as I possibly can, he ends his performance by throwing his hands up in the air and saying to me, "That doesn't make any sense. None of it does, and you're losing customers like this, and you just lost me as a customer." He then just walks away, but honestly, whatever. Again, there are literally no other cars in the parking lot. Even he didn't even park there. All of the store lights were off, and our second entrance's storm door was still down. In no way would any right mind think that we're open, and then to argue with me over normal business procedures is just crazy to me. This is not the interaction I've had, but honestly, I wanted to share this just to get this off of my mind. Wow, that guy was a complete jerk. Like, not only is he there way before opening, but he's also making the biggest deal out of this possible. Like, seriously, it's just a store. You can't like go get breakfast and then come back, or even like, I don't know, be more reasonable in some kind of way, because this behavior is like super weird, and it honestly is completely uncalled for. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for being angry at my best friend, all because she replaced me and tried to flirt with my close friend just to hurt me? Because right now, I am still incredibly hurt by this, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Okay, so for a bit of context, I'm still in high school, and this happened about a year ago. During my time there, I was extremely short, and I mean like extremely short. And that was just genetics, and I would inevitably grow, but nonetheless, I had always thought it was my source of all of my problems, ever since people wouldn't talk to me as a pre-teenager, and that really affected my body image. I eventually did get friends, but even then, pretty much every day, they would mock me for being shorter than everyone else. But around September 2 years ago, I met a friend who was funny, kind, and never called me any names, which made me respect them far more, and in turn, want to be around them. They were also a girl, and since I'm attracted to girls, she helped me through so much by not calling me names, and as a result, I naturally developed feelings for her. We communicated every single day, even staying up until midnight in some cases, no matter if it was a weekday or not, and with the way we talked, I was sure she also liked me. We quickly became best friends and would do everything together, and I mean everything. I constantly went to her house and I ate with her instead of my previous toxic friends. But around 6 to 7 months ago, a new girl came into my school, let's call her Michelle, that's not her real name, and being the nice person that she is, or rather she was, she helped them around the school and invited her to eat with us. Now, I had no problem with this. I figured the more the merrier, and I was happy to have another non-toxic friend, but I soon realized that the tone in her voice and the way she was acting seemed like she was almost trying to replace me. Now, this is not me being jealous, because soon enough, she would speak to me spitefully, such as saying that she didn't care if I couldn't come to her house, or blatantly and deliberately walking off with her and trying to leave me behind. She would also constantly mention that she missed Michelle during conversations and would also act bored around me. Soon enough, it was like she was trying to ditch me, hurrying away from me to talk to her and leaving me standing in mid-conversation and completely ignoring me during breaks. Now, just to clarify, this is no fault of Michelle. She's a wonderful person that has no fault in this and would later become a good friend of mine. Anyways, it was clear to me as well that if I wanted to confess to her, I would have to do it soon, as she herself claimed that our friendship lost our spark. While confessing in a nice way, she told me something that I will never forget. She told me that she added a tally to guys who liked her. She hurt me so badly, seeing as all of those guys just came up to her one day and asked her out, whereas I took years to develop emotions for her. She then proceeded to decline me, later claiming that she never liked me and those flirting sessions were just friendliness. The heartbreak that I felt was horrible. After that, she made it an excuse to stop talking to me. All of this was happening while someone I knew had just passed away and a close friend having their tongue removed due to cancer. I was so young to be dealing with all of this, and it was the worst experience of my entire life. My mental health was awful, and at the same time, I was still mentally growing and dealing with all of this at the same time. I tried telling my best friend this, but she straight up told me that she did not care, and I was so devastated. Then something happened that would make me fume. She started flirting with an extremely close friend right in front of me. This is not her friendly way of speaking. This was her changing her voice to a high pitch and also giving off genuine flirtatious looks. I was considering some dark things at the time, and the thing is, she's still doing it. She's still flirting with him, and it appears that I can't be around Michelle either, because if she sees us together, she grabs her and asks, "Oh my god, where have you been?" As well as her saying stuff like, "Why did you go to him?" I want to tell my close friend that she is not actually interested because I can firsthand tell you that she's not truly interested in him, and that Michelle is in a controlling friendship, but I feel like it's not my place and that I just can't do it. And I'm also just still processing this whole ordeal. So that of course leaves the question, am I the jerk for being jealous with my former best friend? Because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, I really think you need to find new friends. This lady sounds awful. She very clearly doesn't like you, which is like whatever, that's totally fine. But for her to almost go out of her way to try and make you feel horrible, while also like denying you the chance to be friends with people around you, and almost making a show of the fact that she doesn't like you but she likes your friend, like that is an entirely different level of toxic that truly you do not deserve that in the slightest. You don't deserve to be treated that way. And honestly, I think it would be in your best interest to just move on and find anybody else to be around. And I totally get where you're coming from. You feel jealous that she's flirting with other people, but you really need to understand that she is not a good person. This is not a good friend, and clearly she was only using you for some kind of attention, and it seemed like she didn't have any kind of like genuine bone in her body. And yes, that is hard to hear, but I think it would be better to accept that now so you can eventually move on and find people who actually do care about you, because this lady does not care about you at all, and I think that you absolutely deserve better friends who actually care about you. My partner's siblings has treated me like garbage, constantly saying terrible things about me, painting me as an awful narcissistic girlfriend, despite the fact that I've not done anything to them. And now one of his older siblings is getting married, and he feels like he's forced to go. And right now I'm deciding that I'm gonna stay home and stay away from this situation, as I simply do not want to be around these toxic people. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So about a year ago, my partner's two older sisters sent me text messages that they were no longer interested in having a relationship with me and decided to cut off communication completely. Like literally one day they just never answered the phone ever again. As a result, they've almost completely lost touch with my partner and our kids because I was the one who maintained communication and shared photos and sent gifts. I mean, we had a good relationship. They live a plane ride away, but we talked on the phone pretty regularly, saw each other a couple times a year, and enjoyed holidays together. In fact, last spring I hosted a party for my partner's grad school graduation and party, and I definitely invited them as well. But they resented that I didn't include them in the planning process and said that they couldn't come. I reached out to the oldest sister who I was particularly close with and offered to eliminate basically any barrier to them coming, including paying for their traveling or flying him out there over the summer to celebrate with them separately. But I did it in the most no-pressure fashion, literally saying that of course you don't have to have any reason at all for not coming. Sometimes these things just don't work out. You have to honor and do what is right for you, and I love you. Well, his read on it now is that they didn't care enough or just didn't want to come, and then felt like they looked guilty when it became clear that they didn't have an excuse. So it created this huge conflict to deflect responsibility onto me. They then piled on all these other things that I had apparently done over the previous 5 years, which showed my true colors as some kind of crazy, narcissistic, awful girlfriend. They've built up this image of me in their heads that they know is completely contrary to who I am and will be shattered the second they see or talk to me again. So they just pretend I don't exist and speak their poison. I spent the better part of 8 months absolutely distraught over this. I come from a family where most anything can be worked out with a talk and a hug. It was incredibly painful to watch this turn from hours to weeks to months, all with no words being spoken to me. I tortured myself, racking my brain for anything I might have done to make them hate me, reviewing all the things I ever said to them, and trying to figure out how I could have said them differently, or maybe just apologizing, or giving them space, or reaching out. All of this until I eventually just gave up. He took the kids to his mom's to see them for a few hours around Christmas, and they've Zoomed with the kids maybe twice. Other than that, there's been no communication other than his mom sending us all emails that she had written with her therapist to try and mend things. Which then brings us to the current issue. His older sister sent a save the date for her wedding in June. We've been talking about it and working through this in therapy. Ultimately, I think he is leaning towards going because he would feel guilty if he didn't. He feels like if there's any hope at reconciliation in the future, they will just use the fact that he didn't go against him. And there's a part of both of us that feels like it's the right thing to do for the kids. As sickening as it is for me to make him go on a big trip alone and miss the kids' first time on a plane, I had to prioritize myself and say I could not go. I refused to put myself in the position of being somewhere I am not welcome. And honestly, as a narcissistic people pleaser who is endlessly forgiving and generally avoids conflict, I'm proud of myself for doing it. I told him I can't go, but he should do what he feels is right. He took so long considering this that I finally said, it really seems like you can't in good conscience not go. So let's just decide you're going and move forward. Now, he hasn't booked a plane ticket or booked a hotel, and our whole summer is on hold because of another vacation conflict. And I'm also waiting to see if we're spending thousands of dollars on this trip. I finally told him today that I really need to know his decision, and he said to me, I need to know if you will hold it against me for going. Like an honest answer and not what you think I want to hear. Until now, I've tried to support his decision while honoring my truth. He knows how I feel, but he also knows we will be okay regardless of this decision, and that the same can't be said for his sisters. Now, me personally, I don't want him to go. I think it sends the message that it's fine for them to be totally cruel to me with no consequences, and that he is fine celebrating special occasions and holidays with his family without me from now on. It honestly just breaks my heart. I want him to put his foot down and say, if you can't treat the person I love like a human being and are fine trying to break up my family, then you are no longer a safe person for my children and me to be around. It also just makes no sense to me. Why would you go to the wedding of someone you're almost completely estranged from? I keep telling myself that family is family, and I would never not go to my brother's wedding. But my brother would never alienate my partner and be so cruel either. I don't know what I'm asking. I think I'm afraid I will hold it against him even though I don't want to. I feel like he wants me to make the decision for him, and that's just honestly pissing me off. I wish he would just say, I'm going to go, and I know that's going to be hard for you, and it's going to take some work between us, but I feel like it's the right decision. So seriously, has anyone been in a similar situation? And does anyone have any insight that would be helpful in some kind of way? What should I do? I think you need to tell your boyfriend everything you literally just said in this post. I completely understand where you're coming from, where you have extended family that treat you like garbage, who alienate you but then treat your partner like, oh yeah, nothing's wrong. But it's like, what are you talking about? Literally everything is wrong right now. So I think maybe talking to your partner and being like, hey, this is exactly how I feel, and maybe going into more detail of like your expectations for him, as well as like the rock and the hard place you both find yourself in. Like, I think that really would make a big difference in my opinion, because you said it yourself, the way these people are treating you is completely inappropriate, and hopefully this situation can get better sooner than later. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.